The invisible switch, mastering your inner world. Have you ever felt like the world has a secret button capable of dismantling you from the inside out? A misplaced word, a sharp glance, an unexpected silence, and just like that, your peace, your balance, your confidence all vanish into thin air. What's worse, it happens so fast you barely even notice. It's as if someone pressed that hidden button and suddenly you're a prisoner of your emotions. But what if I told you that you could permanently disable that button? That there's a real, profound, and silent way to remain untouched by anything, anyone, or any circumstance. A path that doesn't make you harsh, but empowers you. A path not just understood by Carl Jung, but lived by him. And today, this path can become your path. Jung said, "Nothing has meaning except the meaning we give it." Behind this simple statement lies a liberating truth. It's not the world that hurts you, it's you who hands over the knife. But this wound is curable, and the healing begins now. The prison of reaction. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. You woke up early, organized your day, and you're trying to maintain control. Then, a car abruptly cuts you off, its horn blaring like an insult. Anger flares, your heart pounds, and your thoughts drag you into an internal courtroom where you are both judge and victim. The audacity, the disrespect, what kind of world is this? And just like that, in a matter of seconds, your emotional foundation for the day collapses, all at the hands of someone you don't even know, someone who probably forgot you exist. This is the first prison we'll dismantle today. Carl Jung taught us that deep within each person lies an unconscious expanse that reacts before conscious awareness even registers what's happening. The impulse comes from within, but it's fed by the outside. And the secret isn't in suppressing the impulse, but in understanding it. Your breath, your freedom. Breathing before reacting might seem trivial, almost insignificant, but in that breath lies your freedom. This breath is your power. It's the space between what happens to you and who you become after it. You can choose between an automatic reaction or a conscious creation. When you breathe before you react, you break the old cycle of interaction. You tell the world, "I am bigger than that. This is spiritual work." But you might say, "I can't. By the time I realize it, I've already exploded. I've already spoken. I've already hurt myself and others." And that's okay, because healing begins the moment you realize it. Most people live in an automatic, reactive, impulsive, emotionally detached state. But you are here, reading these words. That already shows you don't want to be controlled by what comes from the outside anymore. All this is waking up. Peace, a choice you hold. Here's something few people tell you. Peace isn't a state you arrive at. It's a choice you hold on to. It's not something you win and keep like a trophy to be protected every second. And you can only protect it when you understand that the other person isn't the problem. Your judgment of the other person is what opens the door to conflict. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who deeply influenced Jung, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." If someone offends you, the pain isn't in the offense itself. It's in the permission you gave that offense to enter, take root, and occupy a place in your soul. Now, think with me. Why do you allow someone with muddy feet to enter your inner sanctuary? Why do you hand over the keys to your peace to people who don't even know how to take care of their own? Perhaps you grew up hearing that it's normal to get angry, that you should retaliate, and that bottling things up is harmful. But what's truly harmful is living reactively. It's living constrained by the need to respond. It's living with the belief that others have power over how you feel. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." And what you're doing now, as you reflect on all this, is waking up. The power of silence breathing before reacting is, in fact, a gesture of profound wisdom. It means telling your nervous system, "I am the master here." It means becoming the master of your energy. More than that, it means building a kind of strength that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Because true strength doesn't shout. It observes, it chooses, it doesn't buckle under provocation. But let's be honest, the world will keep testing you. It will continue to present daily reasons to explode. A hurtful comment, a misunderstanding, a betrayal, an unexpected frustration. Life won't stop presenting difficult scenes. The question isn't whether the world will provoke you. The question is, what will you offer the world in return? Because in the end, that's what defines you. Not what they did to you, but what you do with what they did to you. You can respond with fire, or you can respond with clarity. You can respond with pain, or you can respond with presence. You can drown in sorrow, or you can breathe and silently build a fortress no one can tear down. Unbreakable from within, Carl Jung wasn't a Stoic, but he understood the value of emotional discipline like few others. He knew that the shadow, that dark side we all carry, feeds on reaction. Every time you explode, it grows. Every time you step back, breathe, observe, and consciously choose, you illuminate that shadow. You acknowledge it, but you don't feed it. And so, step by step, reaction by reaction, you transform into something very rare in this world, someone who cannot be broken from the outside because you've rebuilt yourself from the inside. And do you know what that means? It means you become untouchable, not in an arrogant sense, but in the most sacred meaning of the word, untouchable by others' opinions, untouchable by insult, untouchable by unfair criticism. Because you understand that none of this has real power. It only has the power you give it, and you no longer give it. The practice of stillness. Perhaps you're wondering, but is it truly possible to remain unaffected by anything in life? And I'll answer with another question. Are you willing to make silence a practice, observation a habit, and breathing a choice? Because if you are, the answer is yes, it's possible, and the path begins now. But what happens when the cause isn't traffic, or a hurtful word, or criticism? What do you do when the wound comes from within, from memory, from frustration, from disappointment in those you trusted most? How do you protect your peace when the blow comes from those who were supposed to protect you? In the next part, we'll look directly at this: how to protect your mind from words that continue to echo even after silence. Because sometimes what robs us of peace isn't what we hear, but what we allow to continue hurting us even after everything has ended. Perhaps what hurts us most isn't what happens, but what continues to happen inside us, even after everything is over. The echo chamber of the mind. Have you ever lived this before? A comment that started small, almost trivial, but it got stuck in your mind like an invisible thorn. Something said in seconds, perhaps even in jest or contempt, but it reverberated within you for days, weeks, and sometimes years. It's not the word itself, but what it triggers: an old fear, an unhealed wound, doubts you've always carried about yourself, and now it seems confirmed by someone's glance or words. You remember that day. You remember the clothes you wore, the place, the lighting, the tone of voice. Everything is stored in your memory, and every time the memory returns, it returns with the same intensity as if it's happening anew. This is how we surrender not to the event itself, but to the inner echo we can't silence. Most people don't realize they're trapped in this cycle. They think they're thinking, but they're actually reliving the past. They think they're analyzing, but they're actually flogging themselves. The mind becomes a kind of hall of mirrors where you see yourself in 1,000 different ways, but none of them are real. And the more you try to get out, the more lost you become. Jung called this identification with the psychic content. In other words, when you believe that what was said about you is you, but you are not what they said about you. You are the one observing what was said. You are the one who feels, not the feeling itself. And this difference changes everything. How many times have you found yourself reliving conversations that already ended, rephrasing responses you wanted to say, imagining different endings, creating alternative versions of situations that no longer exist? This isn't just memory, it's a prison. The unbearable lightness of being, the key to escaping this silent prison, lies in the attitude taught by the Stoic philosophers: observation without assimilation. Imagine someone throws a stone at you. You can grasp it to your chest and say, "This is mine." Or you can let it fall to the ground and continue on your way. But what do we do most of the time? We pick up the stone, analyze it, place it on an inner altar, and continue to pray around the pain it caused. We make it part of our identity. We make it sacred memory. We make it a lens through which we see the world. That's why it hurts so much, because it's not just what was said, it's what you built on top of it. And the only way to break this cycle isn't by reacting or forcibly forgetting. It's by observing with clarity. It's by pausing and saying, "This entered, but it doesn't define me. This wound doesn't belong to me. This was said, but it's not the truth about me." Have you considered how many versions of you exist in other people's minds? Hundreds. Everyone who knows you carries an idea of you, and all these ideas are partial, distorted, and limited. None of them are you, just as the idea you form of others is also incomplete. When someone judges you, what is being judged isn't you, but the interpretation that person made from their own perspective, through their pain and beliefs. And that says more about them than it says about you. True freedom begins when you stop carrying these lenses as if they were mirrors. You don't need to see yourself through what others reflect. You can, of course, listen, think, learn, and adapt, but without internalizing it as if it were law. The heart is not a landfill for emotional waste, and there's no need to let the dirt of others pollute the floor of your pure peace. An old woman's wisdom. One day, an old woman told me something I'll never forget. She was 78 years old and had lived a life full of challenges: a difficult marriage, painful losses, a drug-addicted son, and a series of illnesses that appeared over the years. Yet, there was a light in her eyes and a peace one felt in her silence. I asked her how she managed to maintain all that. She replied, "I don't let anyone enter my soul with their dirty feet." That's the secret. She observed. She didn't internalize. And even though she lived through many horrors, she possessed a peace that many young people desperately search for. But what if the judgment comes from someone you love? What if the criticism comes from a parent, a partner, or a child? When the word that hurts you comes from someone you only wanted to understand you, it hurts more. Because it's not just the content, but the source. It comes from where you expected an embrace, not a cut. It comes from where you expected love, not an attack. But this is precisely where your hidden strength lies, in the ability to choose what you carry, even when it comes from loved ones. You don't need to cut ties or close your heart. You simply need to learn to protect what is most precious within you. Emotional maturity is knowing that others have the right to think as they please, but you have a duty to protect your inner peace. Not every judgment needs a response. Not every criticism deserves attention. Sometimes, silence is the greatest act of courage. The candle in the dark, Carl Jung, said that consciousness is like a lit candle in the darkness of the unconscious. The light may be small, but it's enough to show you that you have a choice. And this choice grows stronger when you begin to practice this daily detachment between what comes from the outside and what you receive within. This isn't easy, but it is possible. And it begins with a simple gesture, stopping. You listen, you feel, but you don't react impulsively. You observe, you process, and only then do you choose what you will carry. It's like being in the middle of a storm and knowing there's a place inside you that remains dry, still silent, a place no one touches, an intimate sanctuary. This is your power. And if you've made it this far, if these words are affecting you in some way, it's because you know, or at least feel, that your peace is above any provocation. That true respect begins when you stop accepting poison as emotional nourishment, and that you deserve more than carrying what others have left on you. An inner transformation. That's why I want to offer you a tool that can be the beginning of a silent yet profound transformation. My ebook, Jung's Way of Detachment, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and mental clarity. It's an invitation to cultivate this conscious gaze upon yourself every day. A simple yet powerful guide based on Jung's teachings to create a space of presence, clarity, and self-mastery in your routine. You'll realize that 5 minutes can change not just your day, but the way you interact with the world. The link to access it is in the pinned comment on this video. How many times have you felt crushed by criticism? Not just any criticism, but the kind that seems custom-made to hit you in your most painful spots. A mistake you made, a character trait that bothers you, a flaw you try to hide, and someone comes along and hits you in that exact spot, mercilessly. The first response is pain, the second is defense. And if you don't protect yourself in time, the third response comes, a feeling of inadequacy, as if you've been exposed. But exposed what? What lies behind this pain? What exactly is being exposed when criticism defeats us more than it should? Carl Jung would say that we are hurt by our interpretation of events more than by the events themselves. And this leads us to a disturbing question. What if the criticism isn't the problem, but the voice within us that believes it? The mirror of self-perception. Imagine a mirror. Someone passes by you and says, "Your work is mediocre." You receive this statement like a stone, but instead of letting it fall to the ground, you grasp it and run to the nearest mirror. Then, instead of seeing yourself, you only see the criticism reflected there, distorted everything. Why do we do this? Why do we give all this authority to those who don't live in our skin? And perhaps the answer lies in the hidden roots of our need for acceptance. From a young age, we learned that our worth is measured by the gaze of others. If they praise us, we are good. If they criticize us, we are bad. No one explained to us that there is an inner place unaffected by external winds, a reference point that remains stable even when everything around us collapses. But this place, do you know it? Perhaps not yet, but it exists, and the key to accessing it lies in the ability to reframe. Because yes, you can reframe any criticism. You can ask, what in this is true, and what in this is merely a projection from others? You can choose what you let in. You can turn an attack into a lesson. You can listen without internalizing. And above all, you can use criticism as a mirror to see not your flaws, but the strength you need to develop. Now take a moment and think, what was the last criticism that truly affected you? Leave it in the comments, even if it's brief. Sometimes, writing is the first step to unburdening what weighs you down. There's an indescribable freedom when you realize that pain doesn't come from the outside, but from the meaning you attach to it. And if you can attach meanings, you can also detach them. You can let go. You can leave them. You can remake them. You can rebuild them. The inner critic. But criticism doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes the worst criticism is the inner critic. It's that silent voice you hear when you lay your head on the pillow. That voice that tells you you're not enough, that you're behind in life, that you failed, that you should be stronger, more stable, more confident. And you believe it. You believe it because the voice sounds like yours. But it's not you. It's a mixture of phrases you've heard, expectations you haven't met, and comparisons you've internalized. It's an echo, and you don't have to obey echoes. Do you know that feeling of always being disappointed by others, by those who don't give you what you give them, by those who disappear and don't understand you or feel the same way? Does that hurt you? Does it drain you? If so, allow me to provoke you with a question that might change everything. Why do you expect others to be as conscious as you are? The wisdom of expectation. Most frustrations arise from the silent expectation that others will act as you do, that they will be as cautious, as polite, as kind, but the other person is not you. They act based on their own pain, their own limitations, their own gaps. Marcus Aurelius said, "Expect people to act as they are, not as you want them to be." Emotional maturity develops when you stop expecting sweet fruits from trees that are still green. This isn't surrender to the world. It's protection of your heart. It's understanding that the loyalty you offer is beautiful, but it's not a contract. That what you offer is sacred, but it doesn't require an immediate return. That everyone doesn't see with the same eyes, and that you can remain who you are even when the world doesn't acknowledge you as you deserve. And now, I want to ask you honestly, is there someone who has disappointed you and you still carry that pain? If you'd like to share, the comments are open. This space is for you too. Sometimes, when we name the wound, we make it smaller. The body's whispers. Then we arrive at a point rarely touched upon, but essential. The body. Yes, the body. Because the body gives signals before the mind even realizes it's angry. Tensed shoulders, clenched jaw, tightness in the stomach, accelerated heart rate. Do you notice it? Anger is physical before it is emotional. Epictetus used to say, first, master your outward reactions, then master your thoughts. This means that your body's expressions shape your emotional experience, and you can begin the healing process from the outside by relaxing your jaw, opening your hands, relaxing your shoulders, and breathing slowly. This seems small, doesn't it? It's the beginning of control. When you recognize your body's signals, you've taken a step forward. You can say, I am angry, but I am not anger. And you can choose a different response. There's no need to explode, no need for facial expressions, no need to react. You can just be present in silence until the storm passes. And it always passes, but you have to be present enough to realize it. Now tell me, which part of your body reacts most when something makes you angry? Your shoulders, your chest, your hands? That's where, when we identify the pattern, we begin to weaken the trigger. Your environment, your peace. But what about when the environment itself is the trigger? When you realize you're living in a place that drains your energy daily. We're not just talking about physical places, but relationships, conversations, groups. All of this is the environment, and some of it is like windowless rooms, suffocating, dark, oppressive. Do you feel that? Do you feel that no matter how hard you try to maintain peace, it's stolen from you every time you enter certain places or talk to certain people? If so, then perhaps it's time to step away. Not with resentment, not with hatred, but with wisdom. Move away from everything that doesn't strengthen your soul. This isn't weakness, it's self-respect. It's a silent way of saying, I choose myself. And when you choose yourself, the whole world begins to treat you differently because you communicate what you accept. And what you accept teaches others how to treat you. You no longer need to shout or justify yourself or explain your actions. You simply move away from the place that constantly extinguishes your light. And then, without needing to boast, you'll begin to rediscover an inner space where you can breathe again. And that is priceless. The body remembers. Have you ever stopped to observe your body when you're about to explode? Not your mind, your body. Because before the first word leaves your mouth, before the thought even forms, your body has already given the signal. Tense shoulders, clenched fists, a tight jaw, shallow breathing. It's as if an invisible force controls your posture, preparing you for a battle you might not need to fight. And why is this important? Because most of what we call emotional uncontrollability doesn't begin in the mind. It begins in the body. And if you learn how to identify these first signs, you can stop the cycle before it turns into a fire. It's like having a chance to put out the ember before it reaches the dry tinder of anger. But this requires awareness, and awareness requires training. A study conducted by Harvard Medical School revealed that only 36% of people can correctly identify what they are feeling at the moment the emotion arises. Most don't realize it until afterward, after they've yelled or argued or sent the message or regretted it. The body knew, but the mind was distracted. Epictetus used to say that true freedom lies in controlling outward reactions before controlling thoughts. This seems counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense. When you relax your shoulders and take a deep breath, you send a message to your nervous system. We are safe. There's no need to fight. And this simple physical change alters your emotional response. This is why Buddhist monks walk slowly, This is why Tai Chi practitioners move gently. It's not just aesthetics. It's a way of teaching the body and mind that peace isn't a theory. It's a state cultivated movement by movement. The Tokyo experiment. Here's a true and impressive story. During a conference on inner peace in Tokyo, an experiment was conducted with 80 people. All were exposed to stressful sounds like car horns, arguments, and sirens. At the same time, their heart rate and brain activity were measured. The group asked to keep their shoulders relaxed and their breathing regular showed a 33% reduction in amygdala activity, the region responsible for fear and anger. The other group, who only tried to think positively, showed no significant changes. What does this mean? That the body may be the shortest path to controlling the mind. Now, think about how many times you've reacted violently verbally or retreated into silence because you didn't listen to your body first. How many arguments could have been avoided by simply breathing consciously? This is the kind of intelligence not taught in schools, but it changes lives. And there's something deeper than that. The body is also where we store trauma. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, reveals that unprocessed emotional experiences settle in the muscles, tendons, and viscera. That's why some people live with chronic pain, unexplained tension, and constant fatigue. This isn't weakness. It's unintegrated history. It's emotions without a voice. When you learn to listen to your body, you begin to decipher the language of the soul. True compassion. And perhaps you're thinking now, but if I relax, if I don't defend myself, won't I become vulnerable? The answer is yes, and that's the whole point. To be vulnerable doesn't mean to be weak. It means to be present, to be whole. And only when you are whole can you clearly choose what is worth your energy and what is not, even your silence. Speaking of choices, there's one of the hardest and most liberating choices you can make. The choice to step away from everything that compromises your balance. It seems simple, but in reality, it's one of the most neglected attitudes in adult life. Have you ever found yourself insisting on staying in environments that drain your energy? Conversations that end with a bitter taste? Relationships from which you always emerge with less than you entered? Why do you persist? Perhaps because you learned that this is life, that no one is perfect, and that there's no need to focus on that. But at some point in your life, you stopped realizing that your energy is limited, that your presence is valuable, and that the peace you've built shouldn't be available to those who live in war with themselves. Step away from what takes your peace, not with noise, not with accusations, but with a silent firmness that says, my well-being is non-negotiable. And this applies to everything: groups, social networks, family conversations, friendship circles, workplaces. You don't need to fit into any place that requires you to diminish yourself. And yes, that might mean spending some time alone, but there's a big difference between solitude and isolation. The first is sacred, the second is fear. And those who consciously distance themselves don't isolate themselves. They preserve themselves. A study by the University of California showed that 88% of people maintain at least 2 toxic relationships in their lives for fear of appearing selfish, for fear of hurting others, for fear of being seen as escaping. But you're not escaping. You're choosing to live without eating yourself alive. And that is courage. Now answer honestly. Is there an environment or relationship you know you need to step away from, but you haven't found the strength yet? If you want to share, the comments are open. Your honesty might be the mirror someone else needs to see themselves more clearly. And when you begin this physical, emotional, and relational cleansing, something magical happens. You awaken true compassion, but not the compassion that makes you carry the world on your shoulders. The Stoic compassion that looks at others with kindness, but without erasing oneself. That sees that the rudeness of others may just be disguised fear. That an attack is often a desperate plea for recognition. That coldness may hide a soul frozen by pain. Marcus Aurelius said, "When someone wrongs you, think that he acts according to what he knows." This phrase, confusing as it is, changes everything. Because when you understand that the other person doesn't know how to act differently, you don't turn them into an enemy. You look at them with more humane eyes. And then the pain loses its power, hatred loses its meaning, and you gain something rare, lightness. But beware, compassion is not complicity. You can forgive without getting close. You can understand without staying in contact. You can wish well and continue on your way. Stoic compassion doesn't say accept everything. It says understand and choose consciously. And this leads us to a fundamental point. Do you choose what is worthy of your focus? The body's silent signals. Sometimes, by naming a wound, we make it smaller, and then we arrive at a point rarely discussed, yet fundamental. The body. Yes, the body. Because the body sends signals before the mind even realizes it's angry. Tensed shoulders, a tight jaw, a knot in your stomach, a racing heart. Do you notice it? Anger is physical before it is emotional. Epictetus said, "First, master your outward reactions. Then, master your thoughts." This means your body's expressions shape your emotional experience, and you can begin the healing process from the outside. By relaxing your jaw, opening your hands, dropping your shoulders, and breathing slowly. This might seem minor, but it's the beginning of control. When you recognize your body signals, you've taken a crucial step forward. You can say, "I am angry, but I am not anger itself." And you can choose a different response. There's no need to explode, no need for dramatic expressions, no need to retaliate. You can simply exist in silence until the storm passes. And it always passes, but you must be present enough to realize it. Now tell me, which part of your body reacts most when something makes you angry? Your shoulders? Your chest? Your hands? It's when we identify these patterns that we begin to weaken the trigger. Your environment, your peace. But what happens when the environment itself is the trigger? When you realize you're living in a place that drains your energy daily. We're not just talking about physical spaces, but relationships, conversations, and groups. All of these form your environment, and some are like windowless rooms, suffocating, dark, and oppressive. Do you feel that? Do you feel that no matter how hard you try to maintain your peace, it's stolen from you every time you enter certain places or speak to certain people? If so, then perhaps it's time to step away. Not with bitterness or hatred, but with wisdom. Distance yourself from anything that doesn't strengthen your spirit. This isn't weakness, it's self-respect. It's a silent way of saying, I choose myself. And when you choose yourself, the entire world begins to treat you differently because you convey what you accept, and what you accept teaches others how to treat you. You no longer need to shout, justify yourself, or explain your actions. You simply need to move away from places that constantly dim your light. And then, without needing to boast, you'll begin to rediscover an inner space where you can breathe anew. And that is priceless. Have you ever paused to observe your body when you're on the verge of exploding? Not your mind, but your body. Because before the first word leaves your mouth, before a thought even forms, your body has already sent the signal. Tense shoulders, clenched fists, a tight jaw, shallow breaths. It's as if an invisible force controls your posture, preparing you for a battle you may not need to fight. And why is this important? Because most of what we call a lack of emotional control doesn't start in the mind. It starts in the body. If you learn to recognize these early signs, you can stop the cycle before it ignites into a full-blown blaze. It's like having a chance to extinguish the ember before it reaches the dry tinder of anger. But this requires awareness, and awareness requires practice. A study by Harvard Medical School revealed that only 36% of people can correctly identify what they are feeling at the moment an emotion arises. Most only realize it later, after they've shouted, argued, sent the message, or felt regret. The body knew, but the mind was distracted. Epictetus said that true freedom lies in controlling outward reactions before controlling thoughts. This may seem counterintuitive, but it's entirely logical. When you relax your shoulders and take a deep breath, you send a message to your nervous system saying, "We are safe. There's no need to fight." And this simple physical change alters your emotional response. This is why Buddhist monks walk slowly. This is why Tai Chi practitioners move gently. These aren't just aesthetics. They are ways of teaching the body and mind that peace isn't a theory. It's a state-cultivated movement by movement. The body remembers a deeper truth. Here's a true and inspiring story. During a conference on inner peace in Tokyo, an experiment was conducted with 80 individuals. All were exposed to stress-inducing sounds like car horns, arguments, and sirens. Simultaneously, their heart rates and brain activity were measured. The group asked to keep their shoulders relaxed and their breathing regular showed a 33% decrease in amygdala activity, the brain region responsible for fear and anger. The other group, who only tried to think positively, showed no significant changes. What does this mean? That the body may be the shortest path to controlling the mind. Now, think. How many times have you reacted with verbal aggression or retreated into silent resentment because you didn't listen to your body first? How many arguments could have been avoided by simply breathing consciously? This is a type of intelligence not taught in schools, yet it changes lives. And there's something even deeper than that. The body is also where we store trauma. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, reveals that unprocessed emotional experiences settle in our muscles, tendons, and organs. This is why some people live with chronic pain, unexplained tension, and persistent fatigue. This isn't weakness, it's unintegrated history. It's emotions without a voice. When you learn to listen to your body, you begin to decipher the language of the soul. Perhaps you're thinking, but if I relax and don't defend myself, won't I become weak? The answer is yes, and that's the point. Being weak doesn't mean being frail. It means being present, being whole. And only when you are whole can you clearly choose what is worth your energy and what is not, even your silence. The liberating choice to step away. Speaking of choices, one of the most difficult yet liberating choices you can make is to step away from anything that compromises your balance. It seems simple, but in reality, it's one of the most overlooked attitudes in adult life. Have you ever found yourself stubbornly remaining in environments that drain your energy, conversations that end with a bitter taste, relationships from which you always emerge with less than you entered? Why do you persist? Perhaps because you learned that that's just life, that no one is perfect, and that there's no need to focus on it. But at some point in your life, you might stop realizing that your energy is limited, that your presence is valuable, and that the peace you've built shouldn't be accessible to those who are at war with themselves. Move away from what takes your peace, not with fanfare, not with accusations, but with a silent firmness that says, my well-being is non-negotiable. This applies to everything: groups, social networks, family conversations, friendship circles, and workplaces. You don't need to conform to any place that requires you to diminish yourself. And yes, that might mean spending some time alone, but there's a big difference between solitude and isolation. The first is sacred, the second is born of fear. Those who consciously distance themselves don't isolate themselves, they preserve themselves. A study by the University of California showed that 88% of people maintain at least 2 toxic relationships in their lives, fearing they might appear selfish, fearing they might hurt others, fearing they might be seen as running away. But you are not running away. You are choosing to live without consuming yourself. And that is courage. Now answer honestly. Is there an environment or relationship you know you need to step away from, but you haven't yet found the strength? If you're willing to share, the comments are open. Your honesty might be the mirror someone else needs to see themselves more clearly. True empathy, understanding without absorbing. When you begin this physical, emotional, and relational cleansing, something magical happens. You awaken true empathy, but not the empathy that makes you carry the world on your shoulders. It's Stoic empathy, the kind that looks at others with compassion but without erasing oneself, that sees that others' rudeness might just be disguised fear, that an attack is often a desperate plea for recognition, that coldness might hide a soul frozen by pain. Marcus Aurelius said, "When someone wrongs you, think that he acts according to what he knows." This phrase, however perplexing, changes everything, because when you understand that the other person doesn't know how to act differently, you don't turn them into an enemy. You look at them with more human eyes, and then the pain loses its power, resentment loses its meaning, and you gain something rare: lightness. But be careful. Empathy is not complicity. You can forgive without getting close. You can understand without staying connected. You can wish well and continue on your path. Stoic empathy doesn't say accept everything. It says understand and choose consciously. This leads us to a crucial point. Are you choosing what is worthy of your focus? Epictetus used to say that happiness depends on attending to the essentials. Yet, we live in a time dominated by constant noise. Too many opinions, too much news, too many pressures. In the midst of it all, we forget what truly matters. We get angry about traffic, slow service at the checkout, a neighbor's comment, a social media video, a delayed response. But honestly, out of all these things, what truly matters? The 5-year rule, Try this exercise. Think about something that bothered you recently and ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? In 5 months? In 5 days? If the answer is no, then why are you giving it your most precious possession, your vital energy? Imagine your attention as a lighthouse beam. Whatever it focuses on takes shape. So why illuminate what hurts you, what exhausts you, what diminishes you? Illuminate what nourishes you, what calms you, what expands your horizons. Leave the rest in the shadows. This is the secret of those who live with greater peace. Not because their lives are easier, but because they don't waste light on fleeting shadows. They choose where they place their souls. And perhaps you're realizing now that it was never about controlling everything. It was about choosing what is worth carrying. Because in the end, anger is a reaction to the illusion that the world should be our way. But the world didn't come to obey our desires. It came to teach us to love even what we cannot change. And this is freedom. Releasing the illusion of control. How many times have you tried to control what others think, feel, say, or choose? Perhaps you don't realize it, but this attempt at control might be disguised as anxiety, concern, or excessive care. You give everything, your attention, your dedication, your presence, but deep down you expect it to bring you a return, that others will reciprocate as you wish, to the extent you silently expect. And when that doesn't happen, which it often doesn't, frustration arises, disappointment settles in, and anger covers the wound. You feel as if you're losing something you never truly possessed, control over the external world. This is one of the most silent sources of human suffering. The illusion that if we do everything right, others will too. The belief that if we show love, others will understand. The fantasy that if we demonstrate our worth, it will be recognized. But life isn't a predictable equation. The human soul is complex, full of cracks, memories, beliefs, traumas, and its own rhythms. Trying to control that is like trying to embrace the ocean with your bare hands. Seneca said, "Desire that things happen as they happen, and life will seem perfect to you." However paradoxical this statement may seem, it holds the key to profound freedom, emotional liberation. Liberation isn't giving up, isn't becoming indifferent, isn't pretending not to feel. Letting go is accepting what is, without demanding it to be different. It's allowing others to be themselves without that destroying something within you. It's letting life unfold without the rigidity of your inner scripts. And this doesn't make you passive, it makes you whole. You can connect building inner peace, a strategic plan. When you understand this, all attempts at control begin to seem absurd. You realize that what hurts you isn't what others do, but what you expected them to do. And these expectations are what you must release if you want to live in peace. Now pause and think. How much of your life's pain has arisen from trying to change another person? You've tried to persuade, to explain, to demonstrate, to argue, to change. And the more you tried, the more frustrated you became because the other person didn't change. Then you wondered, is the problem with me? No, the problem isn't with you. The problem is the emotional addiction to believing that your happiness depends on changing others. And as long as this addiction continues, you will remain a prisoner of others' attitudes, their reactions, their absence, their approval, their presence. The most powerful question you can ask yourself now is, How much of my peace depends on something or someone I cannot control? If the answer is a lot, then perhaps it's time to reframe your path. From the moment you realize that everything that comes from outside is uncertain, you begin to build your security from within, and then vulnerability transforms into strength. What was despair becomes acceptance. What was demanding becomes clarity. This clarity is what allows you to maintain balance amidst chaos. It doesn't erase pain, but it gives it meaning. It doesn't prevent frustration, but it reveals what can be learned from it. And over time, this clarity becomes more valuable than any certainty. Now, if you ask me, is it possible to never be affected by anything in life? I'll answer honestly, no, not entirely, because we are human, and that means we feel. But it is possible, yes, to not let anything external control you. It is possible to learn to breathe in the midst of crisis, to observe in the midst of provocation, to be silent in the midst of accusation, and above all, to consciously choose what you will carry and what you will release. This choice, however, requires training, requires attention, and above all, requires a deep commitment to yourself. Imagine a sage walking down a road. Someone insults him, another pushes him, a third tries to humiliate him. But he continues, not because he is insensitive, but because he knows that retaliating means descending to their level. He realizes that no provocation is worth more attention than his own destiny. This sage lives within you, perhaps dormant, perhaps marginalized, perhaps suffocated by years of conditioning. But he exists, waiting for you to stop seeking emotional crumbs and start building your own inner feast. And this begins with small decisions, small silences, small concessions. It begins when you say no to drama, no to conflict, no to the need to be right, no to the urgent need to defend everything, no to the old habit of abandoning yourself in an attempt to grasp others. And amidst all these no's, an all-important yes emerges. Yes, I choose myself. This is the point where everything changes, because from then on, you don't seek peace as one seeks a miracle. You cultivate peace as one plants a tree, steadily, patiently, carefully, watering it every day with conscious choices. And when the winds come, because they always do, your roots will be firmly planted. And these very roots are what we will build together now. Your 10-step journey to inner harmony. Therefore, I invite you to take an additional step. In the coming minutes, you will receive practical, direct, and profound steps that will show you how to apply everything we've discussed so far to your personal life, a simple yet transformative action plan, so that knowledge doesn't remain only in the mind, but transforms into daily reality. True power lies in application, and it begins with the following. Everything you've heard until now is not theory. It's not distant philosophy. It is life. It is the spirit. It is the body. Every word, every teaching, every story, every breath between paragraphs, everything has been an invitation for you to step out of autopilot, to slow down your mind, to free your body, and to reclaim what was yours and perhaps you forgot. Self-mastery. But what do you do with all of this now? Because understanding is the beginning, but application is what brings change. There's no use reaching the depths of your being if you don't know the way back to yourself every day. The real revolution isn't in the content, but in the commitment. And now it's time to strengthen this commitment to your peace in a practical, tangible, truly emotional way. Imagine this plan as an inner garden. You won't transform this garden with a series of grand actions. You'll transform it with small, consistent gestures, one step a day, one choice at a time. This is how peace grows, silently, steadily, firmly. Here's your strategic plan. Read it carefully and feel how each part of it already lives within you. Start your day before the world begins. Don't touch your phone for the first 10 minutes after waking up. Place your hand on your chest and say to yourself, "Today, I choose not to be a prisoner." This phrase is more than symbolic. It's a command to your mind. After that, take 3 deep breaths in silence without rush. These minutes are your shield for what's to come. Don't let the world's rush be the first thing that enters your being. Create a conscious breathing ritual in the face of annoyance. Before responding to any provocation, stimulus, or feeling of anger, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, is this worth losing my peace over? If the answer is no, exhale slowly and choose silence. This small decision completely changes your day, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Develop inner listening in noisy environments. You can't control external sounds, but you can strengthen your inner voice. Every time you're in a charged environment, a difficult meeting, a family discussion, a tense public space, do a quick body scan. How are your shoulders? Is your jaw clenched? Are you holding your breath? As soon as you feel any tension, release it. Don't express it, just release it. This silent gesture is an anchor for self-control. Perform a nightly emotional cleanse. Before bed, mentally or on paper, jot down 3 things. Something that bothered you, how you reacted, and how you could have reacted differently. These 5-minute reflections will help you rewrite the version of yourself you want to strengthen the next day. Don't blame yourself. Just observe and learn. Place visual reminders for awareness. Put sticky notes, words, or symbols around your home with phrases like breathe, choose your energy, or don't carry what isn't yours. Your subconscious mind responds to what you see repeatedly. Use that to your advantage. You can even use a bracelet, a ring, or any accessory as a symbol of your peace. Reduce your exposure to unnecessary triggers. Evaluate your consumption of social media, TV shows, and news. Are you nourishing yourself or draining yourself? Adopt the habit of closing windows that drain your energy. It's not about isolation. It's about protecting your peace. You don't need to be everywhere, only where your soul breathes. Choose a weekly practice of solitude. Walk alone, drink coffee in silence, write your thoughts, listen to music in the dark. This practice is a meeting with your essential self, away from external noises. Clarity is born there. Put this on your schedule as a priority. Solitude is not isolation, it's a meeting with oneself. Strengthen your filter for essentials every day. When faced with any annoyance, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 days? Will this matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, then don't give up your peace. If the answer is yes, then deal with it firmly, but without being consumed by it. Separating noise from truth is an art learned through experience. Maintain an attitude of empathy with emotional distance. Remember, empathy doesn't require coexistence. You can wish someone well and stay away from them. You can understand others' pain without carrying their burden. You can offer empathy without abandoning your boundaries. This balance is maturity. It is love without self-abandonment. Choose a symbol of your presence and keep it in plain sight. A candle, a stone, a plant, something that reminds you of who you are. Whenever you pass it, take a deep breath and reaffirm in your mind, I am in control of my energy. This symbol will be a living reminder for you, even on difficult days. The path forward. These 10 steps are not a magic formula. They are seeds, and like all seeds, they need watering. Some will sprout quickly, others will take longer, but they all blossom when given care, attention, and presence. And you deserve to see this garden bloom within you. Perhaps you still feel insecure. Perhaps you think you'll forget, that you'll fail, that you'll fall back into old patterns. And that's okay. Change doesn't happen with shouting. It happens in the whisper of silent choices. To help you solidify this process, there's an essential step you can take today. Explore the ebook, Jung's Way of Detachment, 5 minutes a day for inner peace and mental clarity. This material was created for this exact purpose, to transform the deep principles of Jungian psychology into a simple, easy, and daily practice. With just 5 minutes a day, you will cultivate clarity, inner unity, and emotional control. The link is in the pinned comment on the video. Just click and start. Sometimes, what we lack isn't more content, but guidance. And this ebook might be exactly the guidance you need. If this video impacted you, or if any part of it resonated with your story, please subscribe to the Mindful Emotions channel. Here, every day, we remind you of what the world makes you forget, that peace is an internal construction. Leave a like, share it with someone who needs this embrace in the form of words, and comment below if you wish with your experience or even your questions. You can remain anonymous. The journey to peace doesn't have to be solitary. We are always here with you,